So, first of all, what do you make of the VAR sort of being announced in stadium? And then how do you sort of react to Ange's comments there?
Well, as someone who attends football matches as a fan as well as working on them, I want to know what's going on. And when I'm in the media box, I've got the advantage of having a monitor in front of me, and I can see what the decision is and why it was taken, and I can figure it out. And then on the screen, they bring you up a graphic and they say offside or whatever, right? As a fan, you get nothing. So it's right that it's communicated to the fans. We've all wanted that. Ange Postecoglou himself alludes to the fact that that's what the people want. I don't understand what the difference is if someone just says it on a microphone.
Yeah.
Like, he's making it out as if the process has changed. No, it hasn't. All it is an additional bit of communication to make sure that those in attendance who have paid good money to be in the stadium understand exactly why a call has been made. And that just seems like a completely unnecessary rant aimed at nothing, because there's nothing wrong with them announcing it. If they're going to put a graphic on the screen, why can't a man say it? What's the problem? Like, this is Ange Postecoglou trying to be the hero again. This is Ange Postecoglou trying to play this PR game, which for me, it's failed. At the beginning, everybody was eating out of the palm of his hands.
Yeah.
You know, everything that Ange says is great. He's this lovely bloke. But as time's gone on, he's become prickly. He's become, I think, miserable in a lot of ways. And I think he never wants to ever hold his team or himself accountable. There's always some other reason. And I just think this was completely unnecessary in terms of the rant. And I don't really think any of his points that he's made there are actually of any great significance. I don't know what you think.
Ange Postecoglou, I think you make a really good point about how it was almost like a breath of fresh air when he first came in. That authenticity, the way he speaks, and I know it's a bit cliche now, but yeah, you know, nice one, mate. All that sort of stuff is endearing because there's that authenticity. But now I think he's almost developed this dual personality, this sort of Jekyll and Hyde, where one day you'll get him, if you get him in a really good mood, he's incredibly engaging, and then another time he sounds off, and you sort of think, you know, it's just fruits and a manifestation of the frustration that he's seen on a pitch with Spurs. What I really don't understand, and, you know, who does Ange Postecoglou think he is, calling himself the lone spokesperson against VAR? Are you joking me? You know, that so many fans want to scrap it completely. To say, and it felt like a dig at the, you know, almost English football culture, to say that English fans see themselves as custodians of the game. Yeah, I'm an Aussie here. I just think it almost was like an entitled rant, and I don't think that there's any sort of merit in doing that. Where I would say I think he's got a point is, whilst it's an important development for fans in the stadium, I remember, you know, local reporting at Forest, my mates sitting about 10 rows in front of me, whenever there's a VAR call, they turn around to me and I'd be giving them a thumbs up, thumbs down, or I'm not quite sure, reacting to the monitor in the press box. And so it's really important that fans get that clarity, but I would say it's clarity, not transparency. Because all you're doing is getting, like you say, an added layer of communication. We're not actually getting an insight into the decision-making process, which, let's be honest, is far off what it should be. It's miles off what it is in rugby. I think about rugby. I love watching, you know, I'm a bit of an armchair supporter, never been to Twickenham, but love watching, you know, the Autumn Internationals, the Six Nations and the World Cup. Rugby, as a sport, is hemorrhaging money worldwide. Yet for the past 10, 15, arguably 20 years, they've got this VAR stuff on lock. It's clear, it's professional, high standards, yet the Premier League, the money-making machine that it is, can't seem to get this right.
Well, then that means it's because they don't want to. It's not because they don't have the means. It's not because they don't have the capacity. It's because they're fearing opening up a can of worms. Sometimes they probably think about it this way: if I give too much information with regards to how a decision was made, actually what I am doing is I'm opening a can of worms for myself.
But the worms are already open, right?
Absolutely.
Because of the lack of clarity and the sort of difference in standards and inconsistency from refereeing decisions.
And they've realised that, though, haven't they? Because people have been calling it out. So now what do? They create the VAR propaganda show on TV where they pick the decisions that they want to explain. They pick the decisions that they feel they can come up with an explanation for. And it's a very controlled environment with a host that isn't going to ask you that many questions, that isn't going to challenge you. And Howard Webb can say whatever he likes, and they put that out into the ether thinking that is going to satisfy people's need for explanation. The thing with Ange Postecoglou was, like, if he's taken an issue with VAR, fine. If he's taken an issue with the decision-making process, fine. I just don't understand why the referee saying, what did he say? 4 words? 5 words.
Yeah.
Dominic Solanke offside. That's it.
Yeah.
That's not changing the game.
Yeah.
That's just being, that's just communicating to those in attendance. Those people, by the way, pay your wages and everybody's wages involved in the game. The fans, the supporters, most important people. That they want to know what's going on. It's as simple as that.
The only thing I would say is that unless this develops into more transparency, where we can hear what's going on in Stockley Park, then it's just tokenistic. And yes, it's better for fans. I enjoyed the fact that you heard all the boos. It's a moment of entertainment, but I think that this needs to just be the start of a much more transparent process. That was one decision or one element of the game which has caught the headlines. Another one was Lucas Bergvall, second yellow. Should he have been sent off?
For me, yes. For me, absolutely. And I've sat here as an Arsenal man over the course of the season listening to people tell me that when players were sent off for second yellows for the most minuscule things, that, and I quote, the referee had no choice. That's the line that always gets thrown back at us. The referee had no choice. The referee had no choice but to send him off last night because he clearly committed a second bookable offence. And look, you get the rub of the green sometimes you don't. We all know that's the nature of football. But if you're a Liverpool fan, you'd be incensed by that, especially when he goes a few seconds later down the other end of the pitch and scores the goal. There's no debate around that decision for me. There are some that are debatable, and I'm more than happy to listen to both sides of those arguments, but not in this case.
Now, it would be remiss of us, Harry, if we're talking about Carabao Cup semi-finals, not to talk about
Do we have to?
What on earth happened at the Emirates. What went wrong, mate?
A lot of the same problems that we've seen from Arsenal over the course of the season, I think. I've said this a few times now, and I've got quite a lot of stick for it, but I really do believe it. Like, I do believe that in Mikel Arteta's pursuit of total dominance and control in football matches, that spontaneity, that spark that team had has kind of gone out a little bit. Like, you're asking them to be really careful with the ball all the time, to be really protective of it, to not take too many risks because possession is the priority. I understand the way Arteta looks at it. If you dominate possession, you can't concede goals, can you? You've got the ball. And in theory, you should be able to carve out enough chances. But they're missing something in the final third at the minute. It feels like 4 or 5 players who in the past you could rely upon have all lost their form all at the same time. They're without Bukayo Saka. They lost Martin Odegaard for a couple of months. Kai Havertz has been unwell. Gabriel Jesus has been up and down with his fitness. Martinelli and Trossard in and out of form. I just feel like Arsenal are struggling a bit at the moment generally in that attacking third. And it's not down to any one individual. It's not down to necessarily the manager. I just think they're going through a difficult period. And some of the principles that got them to this point are now turning out to be a bit of a hindrance, in my opinion.
Do you think that, as in your words, in Mikel Arteta's pursuit of total dominance, that the entertainment value, and I know all fans care about is winning, I get that, but do you think that as a product to watch, I'm talking as someone that's a Forest fan, that, just watches Arsenal as neutral, do you think that it's hindered how entertaining you are?
100%. 100%. And I was quite upset after the Newcastle game the other night, not necessarily because of the performance. I thought the performance was okay generally. Obviously I was disappointed with the result, but I think the thing that upset me most and hit me the most when I was on my way home was how many fans were leaving after like 76, 77 minutes. You're 2-0 down in a semi-final, fine, but one goal reignites the tie from an Arsenal point of view, completely swings the pendulum the other way. And people were getting up and leaving. I was in the press box and I had to stand up for the last 15 minutes of the game so I could see the pitch because so many people were streaming out of the exits. And I couldn't get my head around that. Like, get behind the team, support the team. But when I sort of questioned that, and I did a podcast yesterday where I questioned that, and I said, look, I understand there's people that live far away, and I understand there's people that always leave 5-6 minutes early because they need to, right? Last trains and all that. I get it. But that level of people, that number of people to be leaving, that was horrible to see. And when I questioned it, most of the responses, I probably got 50, 60 responses on social media. Do you know what they said? It's boring. There's no entertainment value. And we knew that they were just going to pass sideways for the last 15 minutes and there was no chance of us breaking Newcastle United down. Kai Havertz had missed the chance, which a lot of people said was the reason that they got up and walked, because they just looked at that and thought it's not happening. But the entertainment value, I've gone around the houses, but it's gone. And that's a real problem, I think.
Do you think there's a little bit of Mikel Arteta fatigue? This is his 6th season, 1 trophy. Do you think that slowly the support is sort of faltering a little bit in terms of Mikel Arteta?
I think,
and this is not me trying to create a conversation that's clickbait and about, should they sack Mikel Arteta? I certainly don't think they should. But do you think that there's been a sort of slow erosion in trust of what Arteta can do because you've been chasing silverware and so close so many times for so many seasons now, but you've not managed to get there?
I think some people feel that way. But I think the vast majority still believe that Mikel Arteta is the guy. He's taken Arsenal on an incredible journey, and the same people that were demanding that Arsenal compete are now upset that they're competing but not getting over the line. And I look at it in a very, very different way. Rather than looking at Mikel Arteta right now, I'm going to look at the club itself and the club's ownership. Because for a few years now, they've been willing to spend money and they've been willing to level up in a way that would get them back in the Champions League. Now they're in the Champions League, and I believe they've got a squad to be in the Champions League for the next 3 or 4 seasons, quite comfortably.
Easily, yeah.
But are they willing as a football club now to go that little bit further? We know that they're nowhere near hitting the PSR rules. They're nowhere near. I read earlier today that they could lose 164 million in the next year and still be within the PSR regulations. Made a lot of sales in the summer, didn't spend anywhere near as much money as they had in previous years. Do they have the real ambition within the football club now to say, Mikel, your attack is struggling. We've known that's been struggling for a while. Here's the money. Go out and fix it. Go out and address it. Do what you need to. Because nobody in the world is going to convince me that at the end of the summer window, when Arsenal were looking for an attacker, that Raheem Sterling was the first choice. He was signed late into the night on deadline day on a loan that cost Arsenal essentially nothing. Nobody's going to convince me that's what Mikel Arteta wanted. He would have wanted someone else. And in the end, he had to make do with that deal. He doesn't pick him. He doesn't bring him off the bench. He gives him no opportunities whatsoever, which says that he doesn't believe he's a viable option. So for me, it's on the club now. You can be frustrated with Arteta as a fan because he's the fall guy. But for me, the club have to show that ambition now and do that bit extra to facilitate a deal that could get Arsenal going again.
In terms of the Carabao Cup, what does the second leg look like? For me, I was watching here, talkSPORT Towers, and it was like a perfect away performance. And as a Forest fan, it felt like quite a Forest performance from Newcastle, particularly in the first half. Other than that Martinelli chance where he's absolutely blasted the post, they were defending really well. They limited you to chances, but you had all the possession. Again, it felt like that was almost like Sarri ball. Just Arsenal moving up the pitch, passing it sideways, and really struggling to find openings. Is it going to be the same in the second leg, or do you think? What does the dynamic look going to Newcastle?
The worst thing that could have happened in that game was Arsenal to give up the lead, and they give up a cheap goal, sort of half an hour in, which Newcastle take the lead from. And then you knew what you were going to get because Newcastle have done this to us so many times in recent years. Under Eddie Howe, they've become a bit of a bogey team for Arsenal because they are humble enough to know that when they come up against this Arsenal side, we're not going to come and play you. We're not going to come and attack you. That's stupid. We're going to be giving you spaces left, right and centre. And you've got the players to hurt us. We're going to be a bit more pragmatic.
You have the possession.
Absolutely.
And we'll take anything we can on the counter.
Absolutely. And I fully expect the second leg to be exactly that. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal have 68, 70% possession at St James's Park.
Yeah.
But how many shots on target will they have? And that's the big question.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.